You want to drive faster? Listen in as Kinch Rendell, an SCCA National Trophy winner and multi-time Pro Solo champion himself, interviews the best autocrossers in the land. He talks fast and drives even faster. And now here's your host, Kinch Rendell.
Hello, hello. So this is part one in the Solo National Rookies of 2017. So each show will have a handful of guests here, and there's different numbers of guests based on how long they talk. We're trying to break this down into not super long episodes, so we'll get a couple more of those in there. And if you already missed out, or you think you missed out and you were a rookie, let me know. I've not finished recording. Basically, I got a whole bunch of these recorded to begin with, and I have a handful of people I know of that I'm going to contact and get them recorded. But there's probably some of you out there that are going, hey, what about me? I had an experience also at Nationals, SCCA Solo Nationals 2017. And hopefully this will be something I hear good feedback on and people like. If so, maybe we'll look at doing it again in 2018, 2019, and who knows how much further out than that. So let me know what you think of this, and definitely listen up and see what you think of some of these rookies. And once again, give us feedback and tell them if you heard them. Tell them thanks for spending the time and sharing their thoughts and experiences. And what do you remember from your first Nationals? I'm trying to think back. For me, it was basically, maybe I said this in some of these, but just blown away back in the day, like, hey, there's 60 S2000s. Wow, there's like 10 or 15 Type R Integras. That was what I really noticed, just the extreme size of things. And this was back at the Lincoln Airport. So grippy concrete, that was also all cracked up in places. So what do you remember? Share that online. Let us know. Thanks for listening. Our first guest is David, also known as DJ Alessandrini. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for the time. So tell us, where are you at? Where do you live? Where do you race?
I live in Cleveland, moved here for work, and the region I go to the most is NWOR. They race over in Toledo, which is about 2 hours west of me.
Oh, wow. So you've got a really nice place, but it's a bit of a drive to get there. But for that nice concrete out here, 2 hours is pretty nice.
Right, yeah, that's... I've heard from people there, they might be a little biased, but they say it's the best site in the country. And so far, I agree with them. It's a really good site to just have a short drive away. And we don't really have a great local region in the area as far as pavement goes. So I tend to drive about 2 hours for every event I go to every weekend. So
how many runs do they give you, and how often do you get events out there?
You get 3 to 4 runs. So you got to get it done when they're at the airport. And they have a smaller lot, and you tend to get like 5 to 6 runs at NWR.
Cool. So do they give you any fun runs, or you're literally driving 4 hours to get those 3 or 4 runs of practice?
Get 4 hours to get 3 runs.
Wow, that's commitment. And like you're saying, you got to get it done because they're not giving you 5 or 6, which sometimes we get that here locally. Not that it counts for everybody, but yeah. Wow. But still, it's nice pavement.
I remember when I first started, I was always kicking myself after every event just because I was like, oh man, if I just had 3 more runs, I'd be able to do it. And so you just learned how to walk a course rather quickly so you can make the most out of your runs.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Yeah, let's get into this. So you were 15th in a very competitive C Street, so 2 out of the trophies by .009 plus .013. Now, we chatted a little bit ahead of time that you thought you were going to do much better. So tell us, how long have you been racing? Because even though you didn't trophy, that's pretty impressive as somebody new going to Nationals. So when did you start? Give us that history.
I started in 2014, just kind of burning tires. I only went to 5 events in 2014 and 5 events in 2015. Work got in the way. I didn't like that. I wanted to autocross more. So 2016, got a different job. I went to 26 events in 2016, and also my first national event, which was the Toledo Pro Solo. And I'd say after the Toledo Pro Solo is when the bug really bit me. I saw the competitiveness of the sport. I saw how crazy people would get about it, and that drew me in. And I drank some of the crazy Kool-Aid, and yeah, every weekend I'm driving 3 hours, 2 hours for the closer ones, just to do some runs.
So what cars you start in? Because in 2017 here, you were in the Mazda Miata. What did you start off in?
Well, as any autocrosser that just starts, I thought I had to put lowering springs on my Honda Civic before I went to an autocross event. So that's what I started in with my all-season tires. And then I thought, all these guys are faster than me because they got fancy tires. So I bought some fancy tires, and then they're still way faster than me. I was in STX, and then I at some point went, I'm going to get my dream car, which at the time was an S2000, so I got one of those. By the time I was remotely fast enough to even get a class win at a local, C5 Corvettes were kind of the king. So I already had kind of a bad taste in my mouth through that. And then at the beginning of this year, I felt like I was putting in good runs, but the results weren't really showing up. I was mid-ish pack at the pit race match tour. And I felt like I did a good drive, but the conditions at the pit race match tour this last year were terrible. They were rainy and cold, and all-wheel drive was the king of the day there. So I wanted to get into a class that was less course biased and was kind of like a spec class. And this was before they announced the spec class. So the obvious choice was C Street, which is just a bunch of ND Miatas, and we're all basically running the same stuff. So I made the jump. I got real lucky and sold my car within 2 days of posting it, which I didn't expect. And then I just talked my buddy Ito into driving me out to the Washington, D.C. area and grabbed a new Miata. Drove it back, put the parts on it, and within 24 hours of buying it, I was pulling up to the first event with all the parts on it. So
did you do alignment also, or just put the bolt-ons on and went?
No alignment, and I thought I made a mistake my first run out on it because it was just it was an understeering mess and drove it was just junk. I was like, this drives terribly, but an alignment fixed a lot of that.
So how much better did you do once you bought a car pretty much in a spec class? Like points-wise overall, how were you doing? Did you go up 10 points, 20 points? You notice a difference once you got it all set up?
Yeah, so once I had it all set up where I felt like it was drivable, I started to get top 10 PAX placements at NWR at the airport, and that's generally, you have 300 people from all over showing up, and there's just so many past national champions that go to NWR, and to get top 10 was feeling pretty good. The first real test was a week after I got it at the Peru match tour, and I was just curious what my pace would be. And the first day I was off or the first morning sessions, it was match tour, I was off by a second, and I felt like I was figuring the car out more. At this point, I've only had 5 runs in it or whatever, and then by the end of the weekend, I was only a couple tenths off of Robert Carpenter, who himself is extremely fast. I believe he got second at nationals this year, and so I was feeling pretty good about myself going into the Toledo Pro Solo, which was only 2 weeks after that. And I thought, okay, the car's driving better. I've had a couple more locals dial it in. Let's see what my pace is like. And some cones got in the way, but my pace was good. It was a pleasant surprise. I was surprised to see that I was on pace with Brian Garfield and Julian Garfield and Mark Shrivastava, and I was just pleasantly surprised by that. Cones set me out of the trophies, but in my opinion, I finished those runs and didn't even know I hit a cone, so I tapped them somewhere along the line. But I left that event not feeling what could have been, but feeling good about my pace. So I just kept working on getting faster, and as the year went on, I actually won a national event, the Toledo Champ Tour. I won that pretty handedly. I don't know where the pace came from, but I won it by a second, and there was 20 cars in the class. So I was thinking, I had a goal board with my goals for the year, and one of the goals was make it to nationals, just like the national championships. And so just making it was a goal, but then there was a sub goal on there, which was trophy. And at some point I thought, could I do the impossible and like maybe even win it in my first time going there? And that's a bunch of craziness. Has anybody won in their first time going out?
Yes, but it wasn't like they hadn't raced for over a decade.
Okay, all right. So I started to think all sorts of craziness about, hey, maybe I could win. And then the Skoda Pro Solo was the last national event before national championships. And I got second there over Robert Carpenter and Julian Garfield and Brian Garfield and among some other names. I lost to Mark Shrivastava. I had an unfortunate cone that would have taken the win away. I would have won by 0.4 of a second. So I'm thinking, all right, if I can just stay away from these dumb cones, I might be able to do something at nationals. And I've always heard at nationals how it's so grippy. Don't mess with your car on the all these things I've heard from this podcast, which
test course is different.
Yeah, test course is different. Don't base any setup changes on the test course, and I tend to not change anything with the setup of the car unless I felt like something needs drastic changing. It's a street class. The cars basically all drive the same. There's not that much you can change, right? So I tend to not touch and mess with things unless watching in video I can go, you know what, the car shouldn't be doing that. Or, I'm losing a lot of time here trying to catch the car. Maybe I could figure something out that would, in this scenario, make the car easier to drive. Maybe its raw pace overall with, Ayrton Senna behind the wheel will be a little less. But at my current skill level, will it be faster most of the time? And that's generally how I'm going to try to set up the car. So,
what did you notice on the test course? Did you get to see anybody else's times to know that you were off, or just it was handling funny?
On the test course, I was right with Ogburn, who's the only times I saw. I think I was 2/10 faster than him on the test course, and then I heard McKelvey went 2 or 3 tenths faster than me. But it was later in the day, so there was more heat in the concrete. So I'm like, that's not really an apple to apple, but I was feeling pretty good. And then one of the best things about nationals is how it's a party and racing breaks out. So at the Dallas, or not Dallas, the Texas tent or whatnot, they have the Big Wheel Pro Solo, where it's just you have these big wheels that kids should be riding, and they set up a little cone course that mirrors each other. And I was lucky enough to hang out with Tom O'Gorman for 2 hours and pick his brain about everything and anything involving racing. And at some point, I was like, "Hey, if I pay for the the test course runs, would you like to take a Miata out on the test course?" And of course, he said yes. So we hooked up data. We had video. When I say we, me and my co-driver, Dennis Barrett, we hooked up data and had video, and we're like, all right, it's time to learn from a Pirelli world champion. We're starstruck. And he goes out in his first run, and he's 2/10 off of my best. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, all right. And then he goes out again, and he crushes me by a half second. And he crushed everybody that ran on that test course in a C Street car by a half second. And he was crushing us. The test course is the same every year, right?
Well, it all depends on if they may tweak it sometimes. So you can't really ever say that because if the concrete breaks up or something, I think it's been tweaked every time.
Oh, okay. Well, you start and then you go around the right-hand sweeper into a slalom, and the biggest difference between what Dennis and I were doing to what Tom was doing is we were cutting distance on that sweeper a lot to the point where we were having to build speed back up into the slalom. Well, because cut distance.
Yep.
That's, drilled into everybody's head who listens to your podcast. and most of the time it works out well. But what Tom was doing is he was picking a line where when he left that sweeper, he entered the slalom going pretty much at the limit of the car entering the slalom. And it kind of changed the way I thought about slaloms, where essentially a slalom is a straightaway. As long as, you're at the limit of the car and you can accelerate or whatnot. But we were entering the slalom going slow and turning around the cones, and then eventually toward the end of the slalom would be at the limit. Well, Tom entered the slalom already at the limit of what the pacing, the spacing of that slalom was, and he got all of his time right there.
So
and it kind of changed the way we thought about it.
Do you think he touched the brakes at all? So that comes back to this whole thought I always have is I try to carry as much speed in as I can, even if it's too much speed and I have to slow down. Do you think he had to give up any speed at the second or third cone because of that, or?
No. He was getting to third gear in the middle of the slalom, and you know how rolly a C Street Miata is, so he's like flopping around in the car and somehow got it into third, and then was just. The video is amazing. He's just like holding on for dear life, like flopping around in this soft C Street car, going through the slalom. It was pretty awe-inspiring. It made me realize I'm underdriving every slalom in the world. So,
great point there.
But yeah, so me and my co-driver went into walking the nationals courses, and we're like, oh look. And we started calling it the Tomo. Anytime we saw a situation where more speed we carry into the slalom means more speed overall, and I think that threw us for a loop because watching, especially on the Cornside course, watching McKelvey's run. Did you see how much McKelvey crushed everybody by on day 2?
Yeah, Daniel, I'm looking at the results right here. He ran a 60.89, and Robert Carpenter, one of your local or competitive, 62.1. The lowest I see is 61.8, 61.5. So he got almost a full second on everybody there.
Right. When he came through the line, I'm like, is there a mistake in timing? I didn't understand how that was possible. Watching his run, it's one of the most beautiful autocross runs I've ever seen. It was so perfect. I even told him after he did the run, I said, "You're putting that on YouTube, right?" And he kind of laughed. And he obviously just won a national championship, so YouTube is not something he was thinking about. But I just couldn't wait to watch the run. I wanted to see how he did it and how it was possible, so yeah, I could learn from it. Since then I've put my fastest run on a screen and then his, and I watch them both, and I'll sync them up and see exactly where I lost all the time, and there's I was losing time almost everywhere to him for his run to be that much faster, but one of the biggest section was one of the last sweepers before the high-speed slalom, which I thought, oh, this is a Tomo, right?
Are you talking about the big, huge left-hander going into the final, three-cone slalom?
Yeah, this is the final three-cone thing. So I thought, this slalom is fast. It was like 36 paces or something. It was huge. The slalom was massive. So I thought, I'll cut as much distance as I can in this corner, but the exit speed is more important because I'm looking way off into the distance at the finish. And I'm like, any speed I carry out of this is going to matter.
Everywhere, yep.
Well, what McKelvey showed everybody was that he was just tight and tighter on the entire thing. And he must have got at least 5 to 6 car lengths on me just in that corner alone.
So you're talking about the big, huge left-hander, like the biggest sweeper we ever really have, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a fast sweeper, and it kind of like pinched down a little bit at the end with like that box of cones at the end. But yeah, McKelvey took just a really tidy line. The car was like perfectly on the limit through the entire thing, and he came out with more speed than I was anticipating you could. And going out, I don't think I was any faster than he was, but I drove way wider trying to come out faster. And
so,
yeah, and
let me add a little bit to that whole turn there. Watching video from myself and my co-driver, I need to do this with David Whitener. Somewhere I have these videos, and since I've not gotten them to him, I haven't compared to him yet. So that being so big, I did not want to add distance there. And I got to watch my co-drivers run beforehand. I was like, oh my goodness, with VR headset. I'm like, whoa, he went way out wide. I'm like, I didn't see any way that I could add that much distance for that long to make it pay off. But where I screwed myself was on my best run, I think the second one was set up to be well. I missed that cone on the left before the first slalom cone he went around on the left-hand side. And therefore, I was late and had to give it up. So there were many things there that if you were going fast, even on the tight line or wide line, if you didn't set up for that slalom, you couldn't carry the speed even at 36 pace or whatever. That was extremely high speed.
Yeah, it was. That course was definitely that was my favorite as far as nationals goes. The Cornside course. It was just so. It was so busy and technical, and still had moments of like. Butt clinching speed, and it was just that was a great course, and something different from nationals to local events. Like we have great courses at Toledo Pro Solo, but I think I'm starting to understand the brain of Alex Jones, who makes most of the courses, because I feel like his courses I can just figure out very quickly like what the right thing to do is. At nationals, for whatever reason. Starting to look at the courses, it's just I've never had so many internal debates on like what the correct thing to do is in this situation or this element, or do I shut it down here to come out faster, or is it better to? I found myself conflicted everywhere. And normally, especially toward the end of the year when I really felt like everything was coming together for me, I walk a course and I feel like this is the obvious way to drive this course. This is how you do it. And at nationals, I was just conflicted everywhere.
Well, and that's one thing. Let me tell you set yourself up for a challenge there with Tom driving. The year before that, I drove a GT3 with Salil in Super Street. And we did the same thing. Got on a test course, got Brian Peters in the car, got him to tell us stuff, and thought we were going to magically be faster because we were taking input before nationals. So I think once you do that, you've introduced some bit of, what I've been doing isn't good enough. I need to change this. And therefore, you start questioning not only how to enter the slalom, but I think you start questioning everything. So I think that's where how can you apply, like you've heard on this podcast over and over, do your normal thing all the time. And believe me, I've changed things at nationals so many times, from take the sway bar off to do whatever. None of that is usually going to help very much. Although in your case, I think coming from that really smooth concrete to bumpier concrete, like you said earlier, either the rebound or compression or something probably made your car skip around a bit more than you wanted to. On top of, Tom O'Gorman crushed us. We got to do this differently. Like next year, please don't do any of that. Don't let him drive your car until afterwards.
I was doing like a debriefing with myself after nationals and trying to figure out, what I could have done better. What would have made me mentally more comfortable. I wouldn't say I was nervous, because it's just as soon as I'd say you're always nervous until you're at the line right before your first run, like waiting in grid. You're nervous. You got the jitters, you get in your car, you're like a little nervous. Oh, is traction control off? Yep, okay, it is. Not with your car, but and then you get up to the line and you match your revs for your launch, and then you're focused, right? And then there's no room for nerves because you're about to drive the car. And then you're not nervous anymore. So from that point on, you're not nervous. And I'd say nationals was the same way. It's not like I was in the middle of my run feeling nervous, but I just never felt comfortable. And there's a couple things that I attributed to that. And one of the things is the long wait to drive the car. You're there all week, and I ran on the second set of days. And just waited forever just to go after these courses, and I found myself I walked the courses too many times, so I overanalyzed them. And the other thing that caught me a little off guard was the amount of OPR. I didn't understand how much of a thing that was. So.
Oh, that's one thing I should make sure everybody knows. If you're there and you're not running first thing in the morning on like the first day, not only is there OPR, which other people's rubber or stuff that gets stuck in your tires, that's anything off the tight line. The tight line is almost the only option to keep your tires clean. And that's one thing I've always told myself. I take away even thinking about driving other lines or setting up. If I walk and I see where the OPR and little pebbles and stuff are building up, I realize I don't want to get very much into that at all. So I almost feel like your line choice, especially in the second 2 days, you don't have much line choice anymore. So that's one thing for some people, just to simplify. If you're really starting to question things, go, wait, unless I'm running first thing on the first day, most likely you don't have much choice there because the OPR will be there and the tight lines will be rubbered in better for more grip anyway. So that's something to note. Also, maybe help you think, yeah, don't walk as much on these last 2 days anyway. I've got to drive the tighter line almost everywhere.
Right. Yeah, the line was pretty well defined, but just cars going offline would bring the OPR onto the line, and me and my co-driver, we brought an oscillating scraper with a battery pack, and that lasted about one tire. And then we went, well, now what? So, and then some local guys came over and said, you got to get all this OPR off these tires. And I went, well, we don't have a scraper. And then they were like, be right back. And next thing I know, they're like rolling over with the crew with a jack, and they have their scraper, and they're like lifting the car up, and they hooked the scraper up to the battery of the car, and they were like going to town. I was just like, thanks guys. Wow, this is cool.
Yeah, because basically you had one more thing to worry about with OPR off one tire. Believe me, I've been there and had a co-driver come back, and you could hear glunk, 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 glunk because the big pieces were stuck on the tires. It's like, no. And you guys with rear-wheel drive, you really care about both ends. I've realized in the front-wheel drive cars, the rear, it almost helps. It's like, hey, wait, if this will just like help me slide a little bit more, that's okay. But yeah, you guys, you care about all four tires being clean.
Right. Yeah. So if you don't get the front clean, then you're just pushing everywhere, and if you don't get the rear clean, then you're just sliding everywhere. And it was actually a lot worse in the rear than the front. I think just due to the nature of how you set up a C Street Miata, just with the huge front bar, you tend to work the front tires a little bit more than the rear. So the OPR kind of doesn't get a good enough chance to stick on the front. But the rear, it was like I had an entire tire on my tire, which wasn't productive for grip. So that helped with the skittishness of the car. So when all those local buddies came over and started scraping all the OPR off my tire, basically they did it at the very end of the second day, and I had one run to make use of all this extra grip that I was going to have, and I just did one of the worst runs I did the entire year, and I was only like and it was still my fastest run. It was like 100th faster than my second run. And I went, oh man, I didn't execute that run at all well. And it was basically the same time as the run I felt went well. So the OPR really, I believe, made a big difference in how the car was behaving.
Yeah, and you got used to it if you drove on it for very, very many runs there. It was just something like, this is how my car handles.
Right. And I mean, right when I started the car and then took my first right hand turn into the course, I went, ooh, I have more grip. Like this feels good. And then I just attacked too hard for the rest of that run. And I went, what am I doing? After I don't think I ever posted the video just because it's sad, but like after the run, and like I kind of turned into like a pile of goo in my seat, and I just like slumped down and just like, oh man. Because I can hear the announcer guy like, and so. I mean, I'm sure he didn't say this, but this is how I heard it. So-and-so's not even in the trophies. And I went, oh. So.
Yeah, especially as close as you were, you expected. I mean, the fact that Robert Carpenter, you were right there with him and competed with him all year, plus the other guys. I mean, the father-son duo you compete with. if you were ever beating
Yeah.
them, you had good reason to think, hey, I'm going to do all right here. I mean, Julian and his dad are both fast.
Yeah, they're super fast. So that's why I was pumped to I was just pumped to be in the fight for it. And after day one, I was like, okay, I had a little bit of a rough day, but all right, we'll do better on day two. And then it was just kind of the same on day two. And yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Robert
But,
Carpenter was second, Julian Garfield third, Brian Garfield fourth. So yeah, you had good expectations, like you said, or a good reason to have high expectations coming in because you were competitive with them. Whereas some people, when you told me that before we started recording, I'm like, oh yeah, it's so challenging. But in your case, that made total sense. So this next year, if you can just keep everything like you normally do, more so like a local, I think you're going to do fine getting in the trophies easily. It looks like you'll be competing for the top.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope. We'll see how the year goes, and I think the biggest motivational thing you can have is to get beaten and beaten badly, and that's how I felt after nationals. And so I just have a whole list of off-season goals to try to help me get better, just in every aspect, like physically better, mentally better, and then skill-wise better. So that's a lot of karting, a lot of sims. Like I was mentioning you on Facebook, I've been doing a lot of iRacing this off season. Last off season, I did a lot of Assetto Corsa. But I find with iRacing is the competition is what makes me push for like that extra little bit. And then iRacing, the competition is so fierce and strong that it's pretty easy to motivate yourself to, let's do 20 more laps, So, and in those 20 laps, you figure out things. You're like, you know what? If I kind of throw the car like this a little bit, and I can get away with something like this, or you can, because they have the adaptive like live timing, you can see how much you're losing and gaining. You can see like how a simple mistake, how much time it costs you for the whole next section or stuff like that. So, I'm just keep working, and then maybe next year I can. It would be amazing if I could do a runaway performance like McKelvey, but I think that was probably a 1 in a million run he did, at least for me at my skill set to be able to do a run like that. So we'll see. See what happens.
I think he also mentioned that he knew he already had it, so he got to go out there and just try to have the perfect run. Probably like no nerves, no nothing. Because I'm pretty sure with his 61.5 that he already
had it by like a half a tenth.
Yep, the next closest, Dave Ogburn had a 61.554. But Dave was but Dave was off on the first day compared to the run. So yeah, I think Daniel already had it in the bag. So therefore, no pressure. What can we really do out here? And he can go really fast. So
yeah, it turns out he's really fast. He's going to STR now. I told him he should stay in C Street so I can chase him for another year. But I don't blame him to go into STR. The C Street Miatas have a problem with ripping their subframes apart. So there was a post the other day. Mark Shervastov was like, "Hey, is this what it looks like when the subframes are cracking?" And then somebody's like, "Yeah, that's what mine look like." And then somebody else chimed in and was like, "Oh man, I got to go check mine." And I'm like, "Crap, I better go check mine." And sure enough, my subframe's cracking. And then I posted mine, that mine's cracking, and then about 15 other people posted that theirs was cracking. So that's just a thing that happens for C Street cars, apparently.
Oh. Well, I'm looking at one of the S2000s, the STR car I have, and the upper mounts for the control arms start coming unwelded. For whatever reason, the first couple of years they made these cars, they only had a couple of tack welds. So that's same type.
AP1s do that, right?
Yep.
Not
AP1.
so much AP2s unless you have slicks and stuff on the car.
Yep. And this one had been tracked some too. So this one had been out there and run around quite a bit. But still, I'm like, what? Okay. What's loose? I'm like, oh my goodness, it's ripping off like almost all the way off the car. So it's
now,
amazing.
How do you fix that?
Yeah, you re-weld them basically, and you add more welding than was there originally. So they literally had 2 or 3 tack welds on each spot instead of having the whole thing on the edges also welded. So it's something they evidently changed at some point. I don't know if it was that 3rd or 4th year there, but they did. So yeah, for a lot of these cars, even in stock form or STR form, you're putting a lot of force on those cars. Oh, so tell me, to wrap up, unless you have some more good stories and advice here, is advice for other people for their first time. They're going to head to nationals. What are you going to tell them to think about to do something you would change that you haven't already mentioned?
My advice would be you only have one first nationals, and just take it all in because there's just a lot happening. Go to the Mazda dinner, the whatever thing. Go hang out in the Texas area because everybody over there was super cool. They even had a projector up with showing people's runs, and just everybody was just trying to help each other get faster at the courses they haven't driven yet. And yeah, just take it all in. Just enjoy it. You only get one. And if by some means it turns out that you're in the running, then just go, cool. That's what I would do. I'd say don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just enjoy yourself. The results will come regardless of how much you want it. So.
And I'd love to point out again that you mentioned having a goal sheet in addition to having things to do during this year for physical and mental things to make yourself better. So I love that when people have goals for life, for racing, for business, all of it. At least have something you're aiming at or aiming toward. So I appreciate you sharing that as well.
Yeah, it's just I'm sure it's a statistic somewhere, but I've heard that by writing them down, you have a much more likely chance of completing them. And it hangs on my fridge, so anytime I walk by it, I see it, and it's just I know it's just something that it's a slow grind toward. You can't build a house in a day, but you can put a couple bricks down every day. So
exactly, and they also say putting it on the mirror where you brush your teeth, like you're up in the morning.
Oh,
the positive thoughts, whatever else. Even talk to yourself. I'll share that out there. Can you sit there and say, "Hey, this will be a great day," whatever else? I'm into that realm of things. The whole self-help, actualization. Any of that stuff, the more the better. It's not going to hurt in my mind. It can only help, just like you're saying.
I think if I start writing race car goals on the mirror, my girlfriend might get a glimpse into my craziness.
You might add date time, more dates, more movie time, whatever it is as well. And then she'll be like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're doing
sandwich
this."
It. That's a great idea. You sandwich it in more dates, more jewelry, and then in the middle of that you put better race carring.
Yeah. More quality time with so and so. Yes, yep. You got it. You'll be A-okay. She'll be like, "Okay, let's get these all done." Like, yeah, see if they'll all happen. We just got to knock them all out. More iRacing.
Yep, you got some great advice. Hey, before I get off, on behalf of me and all my friends who listen to your podcast, thank you. You doing this show has had me have multiple light bulbs turn on and go, oh, that's what Matthew Braun when he said use the brake or do this, or because I get all this cryptic advice from Matthew Braun all the time, and I'm not really sure how to interpret it, but then somebody will say something on your show and I'll go, oh, that's what that should have been, or yeah. But your show has drastically helped me become faster.
Cool. Thanks for letting me know that.
I'm sure it's the same about everybody else.
Oh, no, thanks. And I've got another show to actually release here, and I haven't done it. I said, nope, start these interviews first, but I need to get another one out there. And Matthew Braun, you've got to go ahead and okay it. He kind of finally this last year said, okay, I'll be on the show. It's always like after Nationals. So if you see him, let me know. I just noted right here. I'm going to message him after the show.
I've told him multiple times that he should be on the show, and then he just kind of does that Matthew Braun smile at me and just,
That was so, oh my goodness, I got to get him on. And Ken Mananishi, you've got to come on and tell me the story because you have a similar one to me with Matthew Braun, just crazy. I love that. I got to add this in here now, how Matthew Braun it'd be great to talk to him now, how he's been this past year reworking his driving style to be more competitive. Go ahead. You probably know, but I mean, you're more local to him. So that's just amazing. And then fill in here that somebody that fast, because he's competitive and wants to beat and be competitive with other people, is willing to change things up and keep changing and keep trying things.
Yeah, he said Brian Peters taking a visit in the SSR was like an eye opener. And yeah, that's why he's changing the way he's driving. And he was a dominant force at the Toledo Express Airport events. If he every event he showed up to, he got top packs, but not even just by a little bit, by like more than a second. Like he is a dominating force in the area, and that's why anytime you get advice from him, you go, okay, what does he mean by that? Like at Toledo Champ Tour, I was debating like, should I answer on this side or this side, or you can start tight, but then you might get pinched at the end over there. And he overheard, and he's like, if you don't know, then just drive in the middle. I'm like,
oh yeah.
Wait, actually, that's great advice. You'll be kind of wrong and kind of right, regardless of what the right thing is.
Yeah, because otherwise you might pick one extreme. That might be very painful.
Yeah, exactly. Either you can be kind of right and kind of wrong, and it will still be decently quick. But if you're really wrong, or then you've lost basically.
Yep. Oh, well, I've got you here. Did you do any data or video in between runs at Nationals to look at, or just after the first day or anything?
Yeah. So my co-driver Dennis Barrett, we have like a procedure, not procedure, but just like what we normally do in between runs. And I'll run around and like do tire pressures and change numbers. And he sits in the car and looks at all the data. And then he'll come up to me and go, hey, you're underdriving this. Or, hey, you need to, this is where you're losing time. And then if I don't understand, or like if I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see I'm losing time there. If I don't understand that, then we'll go over to the phone and look at it and figure it out. So, yeah, we do data in between.
Nice.
It's helpful. I think it's more helpful to him just because I think I learn better on video. But there has been multiple occasions where he's told me that he's doing a section faster than me, and by him showing me the next run, I go out there and put my best run down. So it's definitely very helpful.
Cool. No, thanks for that too. I just like to hear everybody's what they're doing so that people can maybe pick that up and go, oh, it's working for David. Maybe I should try that as well. So that's why I like to ask these people the same questions a lot of times, just to find out, hey, what's working for you? What are you doing there? So I appreciate all the praise for the podcast. That helps egg me on to get more of these done and get them out. I've realized I'm really good at recording them, but then taking the hour or two to produce them, I'm like, oh, I got to get that out. Got to get it done. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the talking to different autocrossers is probably the fun part. The sitting down at the computer and splicing stuff together is probably not the fun part. So
yeah, and it's the whole trying to make this audio quality better. I run it through one program and then a second program, and I adjust things. That's where I'm like, okay, some people said they would help. Maybe I finally need to accept help at some point and get some help with some of this. But that's where I'm trying to get it better. I keep thinking I should go back and remaster the first ones, because Brian Peters was when I was using not even Skype, I think, at the point. So it's probably still savable, or at least I can make it better. So no, I appreciate the encouragement there that you like the show. So I will keep it going.
Yep. Love the show. It's my favorite podcast.
Cool, David. Well, thank you for everything.
All right. Thank you for the call.
Welcome. Bye.
All right. Bye.
We just heard from DJ, also known as David. Our next guest is Greg. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the time. I know it's been several months since I had the idea to do this, and finally I decided I would tackle calling like 30 people and seeing if we can get some thoughts on your first Nationals experience. So tell us first, where are you right now? Where do you live? Where do you race?
Well, I live in northern Colorado, and my mainstay of racing is the Colorado region. So we go through the Front Range Airport, Pikes Peak. In that region is kind of our home base.
Yes. So how long have you been racing?
Been racing autocross we just finished up our third year, my wife and I. It was actually her idea to get started, so here we are.
Yeah, I keep thinking that would be a curse for me, because then I would have no reason to say no. She'd be like, we should get that car. Okay. So that's neat. So third year, what got you to go to Nationals this year?
I felt like I needed to experience everything. I spent the 2017 season kind of immersing myself, going to different regions, just trying to work on the craft, for lack of a better term, and become a better driver. So I thought, well, I'll try some different regions, try a few things, and I knew that the big show being in Lincoln, I needed to get there and start gaining some experience with basically how it functions. And like I said, trying to just get exposed to other drivers, obviously better drivers. That was probably one of the bigger shocks was the quality of drivers there was just a great experience altogether.
Yeah, most of us have that same experience of, wow, I'm not as fast as I thought I was. Oh, tell us, what car did you and your wife drive at Nationals, or what'd you drive? What class?
I'm a car manufacturer, a fabricator. So we built a little car. It's actually based on a Legends race car. So we race in F-Mod. It's a 5/8 scale car of a 37 Chevy sedan, and it sports a Yamaha 1250 motorcycle engine. So they're fast little cars, real hysterical to drive, but it was kind of a steep learning curve. We just decided to get out of a 500 horsepower Mustang and thought, it'd be great is if we just start all over and and go to F-Mod and do this. And it was just kind of a wild hair type thing, but we've really enjoyed it. And they're actually building another car for the 2018 season. So it's kind of exciting, but yes.
A new different car.
Go ahead. Yes. We're going to stay in F-Mod. I'm manufacturing a little car now. It's actually going to look like a little 32 Ford pickup to stay in F-Mod. It's actually a dwarf based on a motorcycle engine as well. So my wife will campaign the we call it the green car. It looks like a little military car. And then I'm going to campaign this other pickup so that we can get the car set up better for her. My weight versus hers makes the suspension difficult for her to deal with. It's usually a little too stiff. So we can get a car that's a little more, has a better temperament for her than for her to try and struggle through driving a car that's set up for me.
Man, you're a Racer Husband of the Year, maybe 2 years in a row winner, I think. Making a car.
2 years, ooh.
you built a car. Now you're building a car so that your wife can have a setup and you can have your own setup. That's going above and beyond.
Yeah. I wanted to do that for her, but I'd be wrong in saying that I don't enjoy building the car aspect of it. There's a huge portion of me that if the car does successful, I feel like I've won as a builder. Because sometimes I don't always win as a driver, so I can get a little something I can take back with me.
Exactly. That's what I've realized is people come to the sport and get different things out of it. I thought I want to learn how to build, and that FSP project has not really been built yet. I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not a builder. I have a head to the Civic sitting right here I haven't had put on yet. And I'm scared to put it on. So it's like I'm probably not the builder type for sure. So give us some of your first thoughts. Like when you got to Nationals, what really stood out to you being different? Was it the size, competition, the different cars? What really stood out to you this year?
Yes, and yes. Getting there, I was, I'd been to Lincoln before for a test and tune and some other things, but everybody had said, oh, it's going to be large. It's going to be a ton of people. And I guess when I got there, I was like, wow, are they right? There's a lot of folks. There was a lot of talent, a lot of nice cars, a lot of builds. It was really, for a car geek like myself, it was enjoyable to see what other people are racing. But as a driver, it was humbling to see the quality of drivers that were there. In particular, in my class, we race against smaller cars, the Formula 500 cars, and so they're just quick. They're quicker than we are in not only driving but in car type. So it was awesome to see that. It was awesome to be exposed to that caliber of driver. It was just a fun. We went early to race in the Cam Challenge. I drove Bob Stanley's 2017 Mustang during that and had a ball. So just tried to soak it all in. We kind of went in with the mindset of, look, this is your first year. Don't expect miracles. I kind of adopted the saying is, if you're not winning locally, you're not winning nationally. So get a grip on yourself. Just go out and enjoy yourself and learn as much as you can. And it left me with a little bit of a takeaway of the enjoyment, but also what I needed to work on to become a better driver. But the exposure nationally, I would suggest that for anybody. Just go there and see what it's all about.
Yeah, and you had a great outlook there that if you're not, a great phrase you could say, if you're not winning locally, don't expect too much there. And I've always kind of concluded if PAX is pretty fair for your class versus the people that are winning locally and winning overall, like index-wise, I've always thought you need to be in the 980s or probably 990s if you think you're going to trophy at Nationals. You need to be consistently that fast before you get too many expectations that you're going to do well there. So you had a great outlook thinking, hey, let's go check this out. I think a lot of us go there, oh, we're going to trophy. Oh, whoa, I'm not even the top half.
Oh, man. And it was shocking to see people just broken I can't believe I didn't get a trophy. I can't believe I didn't win this. And it's like I knew for myself, for my driving skill and whatnot, that I'm not crushing it locally at this time. I'm not walking away with 1,000 points, and I'm not even in the upper 900s. It's just I knew I wasn't going to win there, and that took a ton of the stress off. Being realistic about your abilities and being realistic about what's truly going to happen, and more importantly, realistic about the abilities of these other great national level drivers. We had great fun. I had Roger Krug as my co-driver, who is a fantastic driver. As a side note, really kicked my rear end in my own car, which is always fun. Then we went there and we just had so much fun together as friends, just driving that course. We finished like middle of the pack in that car, and I think had more fun than some of the folks that were winning. We really had a great time, but I think it was the mindset of what's truly going to happen when we're there. So we didn't have any outrageous expectations.
Yeah, no, that's huge. So you already mentioned a little bit about this next year. Are you going to have different expectations? Are you still treating this as you're going to look at how you're doing locally? What are your thoughts for this upcoming nationals, and why would you come back?
Come back more for training and exposure. I believe that if you want to really become the best driver that you can, you need to be exposed to the best drivers. The nationals is really the place to do that. Locally, we have tremendous skill. We have Chris Dorsey, Barry Ott, James Darden, just to name a few, all national champions, just fantastic drivers. So we get exposed locally. They don't race in my class. Thank goodness, they're mighty fast folks. But I feel like I need to be exposed to that to become a better driver. Try and push myself. Also listen to these folks and see what I can glean to become a better driver. I feel like I've got a long way to go. I think the new car build gives me a few advantages over the old one. The rules are a little broader for this particular car to help settle it down and hopefully help me be a little more confident as a driver. But I'm just going to keep chipping away at the basics and just learn as I go here and try and reach out to those who are more accomplished than I am and see what I can learn from them and hopefully take away. But 2018, I'm going to try and just continue to immerse myself in the sport as best I can and listen and learn as best I can, and hopefully go up a little bit each year until maybe I can actually have a shot at some good trophy spots nationally.
Yeah, exactly. I like that outlook once again. You're not like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to go for a trophy. You have to see where the chips fall, basically. What can you get, especially with a new car? I realized that even in SP classes, you're usually competing against somebody that has over a decade of work into their car, of tweaking it every single year. So in any of these other classes, I'm always glad I was in stock class for the longest time going to nationals, because it was more of a spec type class. Like, okay, I'm in one of the top cars. It's me versus them. It's not me having the right car and the skills to make sure it's up to par.
Yeah.
So
yeah. One of my biggest pieces of advice would be do as I say, not as I do. In this particular case, each year, my wife and I have campaigned a different automobile racing, and she's like, can we just do the same car like 2 years in a row? That would be great. So adopting a new car, you have to learn a whole new set of skills, and I think it slows you down as far as becoming a better driver. It doesn't happen quite as quickly because you have to start all over in the process of getting the car set up. And I think for most folks, if we're not fast, we believe that we should go to the catalog and get parts and do what we can to make the car quicker, when in reality, we should probably go to the schools, go to Evo, and get the loose nut behind the wheel a little bit quicker and not go right to the parts catalog. But unfortunately, that's something that I have not done. I've gone to the schools, but I continue to keep trying to master the craft of car building to a point where it's like I can build this Dragon Slayer car, and I probably need to just quit after this year and focus on the driving instead of adopting and adapting to a new car.
Oh, but that is real. It's like the shiny object syndrome of, oh, look, I want to go do that because somebody else is doing it and having fun. I get that.
Yeah.
You're always looking for that car that's going to be the one that's going to help you win. And it seems like in this sport, the seat time and the experience and the skills of driving outweigh most all of that car, and even some of the setup stuff, I believe.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of hit on a point. It's really the fun aspect. If we're not having fun doing this, then what's the point? We all want to win. Winning is fun, and that's certainly what my intent would be. Anytime I go to the track is to win. But the reality is that doesn't always happen. But if I'm not having fun, I need to adjust my mindset too. And I noticed that when I have more enjoyment at the track, I actually do better. Not as a result of doing better, but as a mindset. So going in with hey, look, this is it's not going to be my career to be a professional autocrosser. Go out and have fun. I tend to relax and do better at driving and not put so much stress on myself. So that's one thing that these cars help me do too, because you get behind the wheel, it's like driving a cartoon. They're just hysterical to drive. So, maybe sometime when you're out, we'll have to get you in one of them. They rev to 10,500 RPMs and they just scream around the track. And I never have a bad day. When you get out, you always have a grin on your face, even if you're dead last. Just they're very fun to drive. And so that's been important to me as part of this, is just to make something that's fun and enjoyable, because at the end, that's what we're doing. And it tends to make me drive better.
Oh, and you're so right about the fun. That's where in the Sleals GT3, every run pretty much I'm like, thank you for letting me drive this. This was just fun. Even if I didn't do well, I'm like, that was fun. And watching your car go around the last couple of years, it's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. That's kind of insane how quickly you can get going.
Yes, yeah, it does. It'll get up to about 60, 70 miles an hour at the top of second gear. And so it's just amazing how fast it ramps up. But yeah, fun's important. Like I said, always want to win, but we got to have fun.
Oh, exactly. No, Greg, I thank you for your time. If you have any parting words, let us know. Otherwise, you are in for the Solo Nationals 2017 Rookie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, you're in there.
Awesome.
You're basically, as I talk, I'm like, you're in there. You're in this podcast. So any other thoughts?
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate all your time. And if anybody, especially in the Colorado region, is ever looking for help, especially on setup and things, I do some, kind of keep parts and things in my trailer, and I'd love to help and talk with you and see what we could do to make each other better. So if anybody's in the area ever needs a hand with something, especially the small cars, or needs a little information, I'd be happy to pass it along and
tell
see
us
if I can help other addicts.
Do you run a shop for your day job? Is that your side hustle? What is that?
I do. I have a small fabrication business. I recently sold a larger one to kind of downsize to do just kind of the race aspect and a few of the other metalworks type things. So I'm just doing the metal fabrication and not the automotive repair side of it.
Okay, so tell us the name of it. Please share the information here.
The name of the business is GT Metalworks. Works is with an X at the end, just to be tricky. And it's something that we're trying to get off the ground here to start building race car parts, chassis, and that sort of thing.
Very cool. Well, I will also link that hopefully in the show notes. And Greg Tarantino, I appreciate your time and input and thoughts there.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the podcast and being able to be on it. I really love listening. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, that was Greg. Our next guest is Haley. Haley Osterhoff, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So where are you at? Where are you sitting? Where do you race at?
Well, we live in Aurora, Illinois, so I race in Chicago and Milwaukee regions.
And how long have you been autocrossing?
Kind of on and off, whoever's car I could get in for the first, couple years, so it's probably been about, 3 years. And
how did you find out autocross? What got you into it?
I had a bunch of friends in the Milwaukee region when I went to college there, and they were into racing. So I kind of just started watching, and then they let me borrow their cars and start racing. So then I saved up to get my own car. So last year I got a BRZ.
Okay. So you raced, looks like a 2014 BRZ at Nationals.
Mhm.
How was it?
I definitely liked Fall Nationals. There was a lot more ladies there to kind of show you the ropes and go through things, so, and give you advice, because that's where, you want it to be. So.
Yeah, but yeah, tell. So you did Spring Nationals. Said weren't so much of a fan because it was all new, and that was people a little more, just not as friendly, probably because there weren't as many of the people you knew. But when you showed up to Nationals, was there anything eye popping? Were you blown away, or did you expect it to be that big?
I was definitely blown away. And just see how many leagues that we had. They're like tire trailers and our campers and everything. That was so cool to see. And then having the Star Wars, Clone Wars as the theme, that was awesome because people had their little golf carts all decorated, and I just thought that was so awesome. So I was super happy to get the opportunity, from the Wendy Allen Scholarship, to go this year.
Exactly. What would you tell people what would you do differently headed back next year? Any advice you'd give yourself or give other people if they were head there the first time?
I would tell everybody to not be afraid to ask questions, because, that kind of felt like the only way we were figuring things out. So the more questions that you can ask someone, people in your own region that you know, that know the nationals, the easier it would be, to kind of pack and prepare for that event. We did that, and it did help, but then when you get there, it does get overwhelming, and, it's not your own region, so you don't have an idea of where everything is.
So you were saying it was very helpful to ask lots of questions. I think that's very key. And one thing you said before we started recording was it was also more fun, I think, at Nationals because you had more of your core group there, probably, so you'd feel comfy asking them questions. Is that something that really was more helpful there?
Yeah, and they did come to Spring Nationals as well, but I don't know. I don't know why it was so much more, it felt more competitive, people didn't want to help you out at Spring Nationals, but then it was the biggest party and so much fun at Fall Nationals. So I'm glad there was a difference. It makes it feel like Fall Nationals was definitely worth your time then.
That's interesting. And you're right, because there's a whole theme and everything else to Fall Nationals, whereas Spring Nationals, I guess a lot of us think we're going there just to figure out the surface to get ready for Nationals. And maybe it's much more just business for a lot of people than it is, hey, look at all the fun, look at all the extra friends we get to see. That's a good point I never thought about. Maybe we could also try to do more of a theme and do more of a friendly or more of an inviting type Spring Nationals setup. Because I don't think they care how many people sign up for that. They'd probably let that get pretty large as well. So I'm glad you brought that up so other people that hear that can think, oh, yeah, what can we do to make Spring Nationals that much bigger and better for everybody and more inviting?
Yeah, and I definitely know that they're trying to do the whole women's initiative, but if I was a woman and I only went to Spring Nationals, and I do love autocross, I was going to go regardless of my experience, but that would definitely draw more people in if they kind of just realize, people need introductions. There's people that come up from all these different regions once they feel like they're competitive enough, and they want to try that out, but if they have a theme or kind of big figureheads Cindy Duncan, just being so friendly that it made it a lot easier for me to want to come out, knowing that they were going to be there, they're going to help you through everything versus, worry about their own racing. It was so nice to have those people around. Yeah,
good point. And I that's really sticking in my mind, though, the difference between the two. Did you get there early enough to make any test and tune runs for Nationals?
No, we didn't. And then, because we couldn't, get off enough time for work, we got there. And for Fall Nationals, when we checked in, they didn't have anything for us. They were all out of stuff because we had to do morning of check-in on Thursday, Friday. So that was another kind of bummer because it's there's this huge theme and everyone talks it up, and then it's oh, there wasn't enough stuff for us, which is fine. Things happen, but that's another suggestion is kind of, I don't know if there's later check-in, on the night before, then it would have been easier for us because we didn't get there till 7 p.m. So there's nothing you can do without getting off of work. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where it's so challenging. A lot of people, I think after they come the first time, they try to find some way to be there at least a day or two early. And it's I think it's a lot easier when you're racing Tuesday, Wednesday than Thursday, Friday for sure for some people. But that's a good point too. Is you don't realize how big of an event it is, how much is going on. Especially, I mean, at least you made Spring Nationals, so you guys unfortunately learned the hard way about impound and such. But if that's your first big event, especially if you think you're going to do well, you better have a core group of people that are really going to kind of hold your hand and make sure you get everything done correctly. Because
I mean,
that tight ship, they run a very tight one there.
Oh, I know, but I mean, our friends from the Milwaukee region for sure, like Bart Hockerman, Andre Pierno, and Peter Majeski, they introduced us to everything and told us how to do everything, and it was awesome because of them, because you had help. If we didn't have them, I don't think we would ever gone. Well, I did get the scholarship, so that did also boost me to like really want to go and be even more competitive this year. But yeah, friends, your friendships have deepened because of this.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a group, and so what's that saying? I'm not going to get it right under pressure here, but basically it takes a whole neighborhood of friends, a whole group of racers to really help you get through some of these first events. And that's why I can tell people also, this is a side note, I'm not sure if you've done a pro solo, but the same thing, a pro solo, because you're running 3 different times over 2 days, it's easy to mess up things and miss runs. I mean, I even missed runs this time for the first time ever this year. There's even more going on a pro solo. So if you're going to go to some of these events, ask questions, or definitely if you have some friends there, follow them around and make sure you understand what is going on, because these big events run very quickly because there's so many people. I mean, there's over 1,300 people at Solo National, so they are trying to get people in and out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you didn't, people just came up to me and they're like, will you help me? I was like, are you sure you want me helping you? This is my first time. Like, I don't even know what's going on with this pro solo. I'm just here to, like, learn how to drag race because I've never done it before, and I didn't even know that's the beginning of a pro solo. So they're like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I just need help because there's not a lot of people here from my region yet.
So did you guys, at Spring Nationals, did you do the pro solo also?
Yeah.
And that was your first one?
We did. Yep.
Oh, wow.
That's the only one I've ever done.
Oh,
I know. It was very overwhelming.
Exactly. I mean, it is for a lot of people anywhere, but that's one of the larger ones. A lot of other places, of course, you're out east, they're pretty large. Some places are quite a bit smaller where they have 100 people, so it's much more laid back. You have more time in between sessions. But, yeah, you were thrown into the fire. I've never thought about that. Spring Nationals is a lot going on because they have so many people for both those events. So add more caution for any of you that are wanting to do that. There's a lot going on there at those events because there's so many people, especially the pros are usually limited to 200, 250 people, and a lot show up to Spring Nats.
Yep. But, I mean, you have to experience sometimes, so that's why we just made it a longer trip for spring because we could. Fall, it wasn't that easy for vacation reasons, but...
Oh, so since you're in a BRZ, have you heard about the SSC class for the basically spec?
I have.
Are you tempted, thinking that way, or no?
I do think it's a good idea because it's like, then it's just comparing all driver skills. So I think that's awesome, but it's also frustrating because it's like I just got a sponsorship from like Man Engineering for my suspension, and we just got it set up to where we liked it. So it's like now if we stay in D Street, we're just going to get murdered from Evos and everything else, the RS, everything else that got thrown into there. So it's kind of like you got to start over.
Yeah, and that's where one thing, this is like a public service announcement if the ladies haven't figured it out. The pro solo, since all ladies of running ladies classes are put in groups of the classes, you've got packs to deal with, you've got the best of the best usually showing up. That's one big thing for the spec class is evidently there's going to be, if there's enough ladies showing up, you're not going to be indexed against other classes. It's going to be all BRZs and FRSs. That right there, especially if you're new to pro solo, the fire won't be quite as hot. It may be still really hot, but at least you won't have a mix of different cars and the best of the best in these different classes to compete against. So that's one reason you might want to change that suspension back and do a little SSC action, as well as anybody else listening there. I mean, it's something I plan to at least test out and run some this next year, and hopefully I like enough to stick with it. So that's an interesting concept of no longer will packs matter or anything else.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think it's going to end up turning out to be a big class and a good thing. But for right now, I mean, that's a hard chunk of change to just go over to from just, buying your car and then just getting it set up. So we'll see what rolls out this year. I don't know yet.
Plenty of time. The good thing for you is it would still be, you're in a stock car, so you would change some things, but you'd get more grip with the wheels and tires, I guess. Maybe. It wouldn't be a huge change. Hopefully, just take some time to once again figure out that setup, like you said, you just figured out.
Mhm.
Very cool.
But isn't it a whole package that you have to purchase though? Like the
Yep. Bars, the
yeah.
sealed shocks, the crash bolts, I believe, and I think you can do a catback exhaust. So there's that, and that's about it.
Yeah, and I just got, paid for everything and just had my car complete, for spring and fall nationals. So I'm like, all my hard work, trying to, promote myself and my car. Now it's like, here's this cool class, and what are you going to do?
Oh, I know. That's where in the back of my mind, I'm like, I've always said it'd be great to have a spec class. I should really probably support this class and run it. I have the option to run in this class. Okay, I'll at least run this class some. It's hard for me to give up on cars, especially when I get the head refreshed. I'm like, I could put that on my car and hopefully have the power and my little Civic again. So, yeah, and for you all, there's somebody locally also. He's got shocks he's never got to run in stock form yet. But yet, with these new cars coming in your class, I don't like being the underdog, especially heading somewhere like Nationals, going that far, that much effort. And if the course is such that you can't compete, that's just demoralizing to me. At least you, in this case, you can go to a different class. Yes, you have to have the package, but they've made a class available for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other part? Yeah, say that sponsorship again, and anything else you want to share with us.
What did you say?
Tell us about your sponsor and anything else you want to mention, like your side hustle, your normal hustle, anything that you would like the community at large to know.
Well, just the goals right now are working on figuring out a place that we want to live. I think we're looking somewhere a little bit warmer, like Nashville area. I heard they have a good region. But then my sponsor is Man Engineering. They're out of California. It's Man Engineering by AST. And I'm hoping to work with them unless we do swap over to SSC, then there's nothing we can do. I don't know. Other than that, I'm just happy working in healthcare and making people feel better.
There you go. And I'm going to spell that. It's MAN, MANN-engineering. Hopefully, maybe you can Google that. Maybe it's manengineering.com. So you've got the 2014 BRZ. SSC is calling your name if you need it. So, Haley, I appreciate the time and input there and your feedback and just thoughts and suggestions.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, that was Haley. Our next guest is Brad. Brad Hurley, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kench. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for the time. So tell us, where do you race? Where do you live?
So I am in Seattle, Washington, as of now for the rest of 6 months. It's gray and rainy, but Seattle, Washington was from California, the Bay Area originally, but been up here since 2002, so it's home.
Oh, yeah, you've been there a while. So do you race out at Packwood?
I do, yeah. Packwood, there's another local raceway, Bremerton Motorsports Park, but yeah, Packwood's awesome.
I love it. That's why I make it to the Pro Solo every couple of years out there for sure. So tell me, have you done any Pro Solos out there when it comes?
I have yet to do a single Pro Solo, and even more embarrassingly, we have a local Pro Solo series. I just haven't, I guess, had a chance to do it, so maybe next year.
Oh, see, you could have met me. I was out there this past year. I brought some ducks. One actually survived for the update for everybody. He's out there and free now again. But yeah, no, I love Packwood. The pros are fun, and it's local for you. And all of us are jealous that you have a series that goes on there. I mean, that's my number one reason to move there. So what car?
Yeah, we're really lucky.
What car are you driving?
So I'm driving currently, or previously, I guess, a B Street Honda S2000. It's a 2004. So bought that car in 2010-ish and have been driving it kind of RTR back when that was a thing. Thought about STR, decided not to go that way, and then fully prepped for B Street. And then next season, I'll be co-driving a buddy and former co-driver Scott Dixon's STX BRZ.
Oh, nice. Not SSC. You guys aren't jumping and taking off all those goodies in the team?
No, we talked about it, but he is building STX cars, driven one in the past, and just says they're a riot. So I'm excited as well.
Yeah, fun. So you were at Nationals in an S2000, I take it, your car or somebody else's?
Yeah. So that is a funny story. It was my co-driver Ben Pullins. It's a 2008 S2000. I have a 2004, which is perhaps nearly identically. The week before Nationals, I was going through the car and found a newly leaking damper, which I wasn't too happy about, given we were leaving the next week. So we actually decided to take Ben's car, which is arguably a little bit better with the stiffer springs in the 08. But yeah, B Street S2000. So
what were your expectations headed to Nationals? I mean, now you've shaken it up and you've gotten his car instead of your car, but what were your thoughts? Do you have any expectations about how you would do or what you would see?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been wanting to attend Solo Nationals for years. I told myself I was going to go in 2016, just couldn't make it happen logistically and with family obligations. 17, I really treated as a learning year. So all of the local events, went down to Crow's Landing, did the tour for the first time, did the tour in Packwood, obviously, and really went into Solo Nationals with the goal of learning. So I had zero expectations. I hoped to do well, as everyone does, but through listening to all your podcasts and guests and great drivers, I knew that if I went in saying, okay, I'm going to get in the top 10, I'm going to podium, I'm going to win, I'm going to even trophy, I could be letting myself down. So I really, really wanted to learn. And then I exceeded my expectations just by learning a whole ton and meeting a bunch of great people.
Yeah, and really, I mean, you were, only like 4 tenths out, I'm looking here, from the trophy. So that's better than I did my first time for sure. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be up there. Oops, It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, setting expectations, I hope more people do that. And just that way you come away with some good feelings. You met people, like you're saying, had some fun, saw lots of things.
Yeah, definitely. After day one, I was sitting 10th, which was unexpected. So well in the trophies of a 54 deep class. We also knew that we had brought a knife to a gunfight. The S2000 is definitely, my opinion, and Ben's opinion as well. But it was nice. I think that got to me a little bit so slipped quite a bit. The course wasn't great for the S2000. We were in between gears a lot. I think it was about 8 times. But, the mental side got me.
All right, I'm going to cut a little bit here because it broke up. So start with, you brought a gun to a knife fight with the S2000. Say that part.
So it's our knife to a gunfight with the S2000, just being a bit buried in B Street currently with the Corvette and the Cayman S and the 1M and the M2 and the like. So we knew that, we had an uphill battle, but honestly, it didn't completely matter to me because I was going into Nationals just really to learn, absorb, be a sponge and take that and apply to, 2017 or 2018 and beyond, really.
So do you find yourself hooked now since you've gone once? Is it a place you've got to get back to?
Yeah, definitely hooked. I love competition, and I've learned early that you perform to, the competition that you're playing with, whether it's in autocross or my background, Formula golf with a bunch of people that are above your level, you're probably going to play better than you normally do. So it's the same, in my opinion, with autocross.
So
really want to.
I got to have you say that with your you're competitive with your background in
golf used to be my sport. So competitive in golf, and I don't really play much anymore since my weekends are taken up by autocross.
I relate to that. I dated a golfer in college and started playing like 3 and 4 times a week and got really rather good. I had high school friends like, why couldn't you play like this in high school? Because I didn't play 3 or 4 times a week and get coaching all the freaking time. So yeah, that competitiveness is so funny. And that's where Danny Kao, he also golfed like crazy until he got into autocross, and now he's autocrossing and buying and selling cars, I'm sure, full time. That's pretty much his gig, I think. So yeah, that's interesting. So the competition, you love the competition. I think there's a bucket of us, a group of us that will bring us back for quite a while. I mean, I like the social, I like getting to see the people, but trying to see how I stack up is a big part of it for me as well.
Definitely. I completely agree.
So what else kind of blew you away or you didn't suspect at Nationals? I mean, I remember at least back in the heyday of the S2000s being new, you'd see 60 or 70 of them in a class. That isn't the case anymore, but anything like that stand out? The sheer size of the place, the speed of the courses, anything like that?
So the size is definitely massive. Like driving, about 1,700 miles towing from Seattle and arriving at the gates. It was one of those surreal moments where it's like, oh my God, I'm actually here. This is so cool. I arrived pretty early, a few days before we actually ran. So Monday, Tuesday was our run group. Tuesday, Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Whatever the first session was. The paddock wasn't completely packed yet. So it didn't feel completely overwhelming to me yet, to be quite honest. Once everyone funneled in over the week, I could see how arriving and just having a sea of tow rigs and RVs could completely surround you or engulf you. So I think that arriving early for me was really a big advantage of kind of feeling settled, if you will.
Yeah, and that's where I like the pro solo aspect. As long as you make 2 or 3 and you qualify to get in for the finale there, you get there and there's only 250 entrants. So there's even less total race cars and such. Plus, it's more seat time on that surface, which at that altitude and everything else is huge. So like you're saying, I didn't have that big blowaway like I did the first couple times I came when I wasn't doing pro solo. You show up there and half that all those acres are filled. And you're like, oh, what is going on? Like, this is insane.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy with, I think the pro solo obviously running, and then the Cam Challenge was running, and then you could hear off on the other side the test and tune course, and that brought home to me just how massive of a place this really was.
Yeah. And then most people don't realize, because I didn't until a couple years back, that people show up there days before the pro solo to get practice, and that there's an Evo school practice going on as well as a normal practice. And at Spring Nationals, sometimes there's 2 different test courses going on. So when maybe you realize people are putting a lot of time and effort for these big events.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of
definitely felt that.
Yeah. So any other thoughts like on Nationals? Oh, wait, tell us this. How long have you been racing autocrossing?
Yeah, so I started racing in 2009. Just did a handful of events. I was driving my daily driver Volkswagen Jetta, of all things. That started to not like autocross so much, and parts were failing here and there. Not necessarily autocross related, but did a handful of events in 2009, and then in 2010 got the S2000. I wasn't sure which class to build it for. I was thinking S2000 a little bit, but kind of one of those rookie things where you jump in and then you realize, okay, this part doesn't necessarily work best on my car. It might be outclassed, and decided the lower prep level classes are right for me, at least now, because I really, really like the driving aspect. I'm less mechanically inclined, and definitely want to work more on the driving side than swapping out spring rates or diff settings or tunes. I like the simplicity.
No, that's huge. That's where I started. I'm so glad I did not go when Michael's like, go to Street Mod with us. Come on. Luckily for me, the lesson was at Nationals, seeing a $60,000 put into a WRX, the Cobb WRX. It was not competitive. And I wouldn't have known better to think, oh, now I have to do more than adjust shocks. Like, I've got springs and tunes, like everything you said. So for any of you that are itching toward that, unless you're really a builder, I would highly suggest staying in some kind of stock class. You can only focus on you. Yeah, you can turn some knobs on shocks if you buy them, but it doesn't get you that much, in my opinion. Really, there's so much as a driver to learn. And that explains you started back far enough that you did that well at Nationals, especially on one of the 2 days you were deep into the trophies. And once again, in a class where the gearing and such can really affect what you're doing compared to the cars that are not a spec car in your class. So,
yeah, that definitely was a big learning for me. And it's quite an investment of time and resources just to get to Lincoln, at least from Seattle. So I vowed, and my co-driver Ben both vowed as well, separately, and then we chatted that we would never bring an outclassed car to Nationals again, just because it's a bit of a bummer having an uphill battle. But I just went there to learn, and that is one of the things I learned. So took a lot away. I would say one tip for national rookies is really trying to balance the swirl of nationals, if you will. That's what I'll call it. So I felt pulled in a million directions, like do everything, meet everyone, do the test and tune, do all of the nightly events, if you will, but also focus on driving. So I think for me, and my one tip is really just kind of listen to yourself and try to balance as much as possible. I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people who attend nationals want to do well, and there can be a lot of distraction from that, but good distraction at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you really have to temper what are your expectations and what's going to help you achieve those. Way back, I could be out all night and not having sleep and do really well. Now I just don't want to feel like that. So that's why people are like, where are you going? Yeah. I'm like, I'm going home after the pro. I'm coming back in 2 days. Why? So I don't stand here all day and get tired. So I make choices for that exact reason. It's like, I want to be well rested. I want to make sure I'm going to at least have a chance to compete. And now, if you're going there and you're not caring about being as competitive, then you have to try that. But if you are, definitely set yourself up for success. So I like that swirl of nationals because there is a lot going on. And I always think I'm going to press T-shirts more and do this and do that. And the time just goes away. You just don't. Somehow you still have a lot of fun. You walk the course and you're talking to people and zipping around and looking at cars because there's like 1,000 of them there. It's insane.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then, you're rushing to prep your car in the morning and rush to grid, and that leads to not being able to calm yourself if you need that as a driver before run one. So, yeah, I took a lot away from that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And that's where I think the more people can get out to the local national styles, national events, I should say, the more you'll be at least set up for how they run. And then I'd even challenge you, like, you haven't made it to Pro Solo yet. Please, this year, do it. I mean, you're in a reliable car. Because it happens back and forth. You make your 4 runs, bing, 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 with a few minutes in between. It throws a new element in there that will help you not be as surprised, I think, about what's going on, whereas some people have not liked that. But I think it's only going to help them when they come back to Solo Nationals that one other thing has been thrown at them that they have to handle very quickly and come back for co-drivers or something. It's going to set you up only, I think, for more success. Plus, it's a ton of fun. So definitely suggest that. Plus, you're in Packwood, and you're right there.
I know. I will definitely have to make it out to Pro Solo this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, that's the I've not been to all the Pro Solos. Maybe this year I can make it to all of them. I keep thinking, make it to every single one. But that venue is unbelievable. I mean, the fact that I trailer out 18 or 19 hours or whatever to get there. And once again, feeling like not super competitive after I left there, going, oh, yeah, you didn't check your engine or get that really tuned. So that's another big thing, though. If you're putting in all the time and effort to go to nationals, it took me 2 or 3 times before I said, hey, I've got to buy a competitive car, like to give up on my platform. So that's a very good insight also you brought up there. I'm reiterating it just for people. If you have high expectations or you haven't thought about how much time and money you're going to spend, you may very well want to put the money into some car that is competitive or get a co-drive or something if you have that expectation. Because, like, how many hours you towed out and back, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I think it's 1,700-mile drive each way, so quite a bit of time investment and fuel and lodging and all that good stuff.
And you were in a stock car. You could have driven. Oh wait, they're not very comfy all the way out and back.
That's 2000. Yeah, can't haul too much. Maybe a suitcase or two.
Yeah.
Actually, Ken, you have the co-driver part. That's something I didn't realize early on in my autocross. I won't even call it career, but back when I started, is just the value of co-drivers. So I'm a huge team guy, both in work, autocross, everything else. And having a teammate as a co-driver can really help accelerate your growth. So bouncing ideas off of car prep, sharing data. If you run data, I really learned, and now am hooked on having a co-driver from here on out. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, to anyone listening who has not had a co-driver and is relatively interested, definitely find someone that you mesh with and get after it, because you're going to likely increase your skill level and performance exponentially more. And frankly, even at nationals, we were in the first heat with really cool temps, so having a co-driver was nearly mandatory just for tire temps. Yeah.
Once again, I've shown up there at nationals and usually have a co-driver and didn't have one, and it started raining. And I'm like, no, or the tires are cold, like at the Pro in Packwood. I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, I got to leave my tires out in the sun. And I pulled into the shade because you're in a barn, so there's no sun. I pull in two little pads and my competitors are like, that's illegal now. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry, let's pull off of those. Cold tires in a Civic or front-wheel drive car are often not good. So there's so many benefits. And the other one that I don't realize until they're not there is if it's a fun co-driver, which you should probably have somebody that you get along with or helps you in some way. Maybe they're fun, maybe they help you stay focused, something. That part is huge as well. And that's where this next year I'll probably be in SSC at least some. And it's because we know we've driven together and we want to do it again and have some fun. Because that's a huge part, at least for me, of also doing well. It may keep me more relaxed or something else. So I'm so glad that you've had enough experience, but you've not been in decades where you're like, oh, yeah, I've had some co-drivers. You really get the point of how that's helped you versus not having them to accelerate. So I can't say that I'm happy. I'm so happy that actually you brought that up and said that. I think people should take that to heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, I've gained a lot from the autocross community and, want to help out however I can.
Yeah, cool. Brad, anything else you want to share with us? Anything from what you do or side hustle or anything else that you would like people to know about?
Oh, that's really it, Kinch. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and chat with your audience. I've learned a lot from previous guests. So just looking forward to continuing down our autocross path and hopefully help out others as well at the same time.
Cool. Yeah, no, Brad, thank you.
Thank
you for the insights as well and the time to actually do this.
Absolutely, Kinch. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for listening. For the show notes and contact information, please visit autocrosstalk.com. There you can also subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on new shows as they come out. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes for the upcoming shows. You can connect to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autocrosstalk. You can share your thoughts, your insights, your questions, your suggestions there. Also, share with your friends. Hopefully you found it entertaining and motivating, and hopefully other people will as well. It's been fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for the next show. Thank you.